Let's get started. Okay, so tonight we're going to hear from Joe. If you have a plant, make sure you put your name down in the class. You get one entry for your raffle ticket tonight. John Leathers and Joe brought some nice raffles and Draculas for us. So you can enter for a chance to win that. If you brought some food, you can get a raffle ticket. And if you're wearing your name badge right now, you can have a blue little ticket. Okay, new members. Sarah, are you online? Are you here? Welcome. Glad you're here. Okay. Jeff, these are a little bit different. You want to go through these?
Yeah. So we're gonna have an election tonight for the next year's officers. There's this slide with the slate. If anyone wants to nominate someone or themselves, you can still do it right up until the election. So, but otherwise, it's usually a pretty quick process. So we'll do that on a separate slide. And the new board will officially go into effect next board meeting. Technically in June, but we meet on Monday. And we wanted to thank all the outgoing board members, and especially Dave Permeyer, who's coming out after a very long campaign. A couple of other announcements. So 2 people asked that we announce the giving away orchids. Mrs. Strell lives in San Bruno, has 4 large potted cymbidiums. And she said if you'll pick them up, they're yours. So if you're interested, let me know. I'll give you her contact info. And then Casper Curto has a bunch of dendrobiums at his place in Oakland. And he said if you come help him divide, you can get free divisions. So it's Tom Sawyer. And then the judging announcements is always for Pacific Central and California, Sierra Nevada. There's also the next slide an announcement that Paul outside, I think Paul sent me this, right? It's not showing up. There it is. So this is the conservatory at Davis. So it's not here, but there's an orchid talk May 9th, 6th, and you get to go around the conservatory. So if Davis is close enough and you want to go check it out, there's an orchid talk that night. What? And they also do it on Zoom. Okay. So anyway, he suggested we announce that. And the next, so this is the election part. So this is the slate of officers. Fred Anderson for president. Derek, who was just speaking, who's been our membership co-chair, is going to step up to be vice president. Actually took over for Mitch, who had to leave early for career stuff. Eugen staying on as our CFO, treasurer, and Carm staying on as our secretary. And for the directors, Stuart and Jeff are staying on, but we have 2 new directors, Rhiannon Croce, who you may know is our newsletter editor. So she's been attending the board meetings anyway. So now she's a voting board member. And Alan Yip, who is for 2, there he is, like back there. So Alan's also going to be on the board. So and then Faye will step into past president, and the other roles on the board are not elected, voted members, so they're not part of the election. So I'm planning to stay as show chair and to back up Faye if needed as past president. And right, and then staying as newsletter editor. And we probably still need a membership co-chair, and Heidi's been looking. Heidi's there. Heidi's staying on as membership chair. She's stepping down off the board officially, and but will be membership co-chair. And we could use help with people here when we're checking people in at the front. So there's some more people power to deal with checking people in. So thanks for the good turnout. So I'm gonna officially all in, I guess Ron's done this in the past. Do you remember how we do it?
Motion to close nomination.
So moved. Second motion.
I'll make the motion to close the nominations.
Second.
Okay. And then, and are any opposed?
I make a motion, we elect the clerk by acclamation.
Second.
So you can tell I haven't done this before. So I assume nobody else wants to be on the board, right?
You want to jump at it?
There you go. All right, so that's the official Robert Rules of Order language, right?
Yep.
So this is now our new board for next year. So. There's some space over here. Now introducing Joe for the talk. So we're gonna do show and tell after the talk, and then there's a nice plant table over here. So buy raffle tickets over at the table there. But we'll do the raffle table at the end. Any other announcements before we start the talk? Any questions? So I'm not going to read everything, but I'll just say that I know Joe tells the story that he got into this from a challenge from his wife, that Draculas were hard to grow, and he believes otherwise, and is, brought Masdevallias as well as Draculas here, but so here to like convert the people scared of growing Draculas to try. And we talk about the care of Draculas, therapy. So if you haven't seen his greenhouse in Pacifica, next to where where they have the Pluribal, Kathy, his wife, is the treasurer and runs the local Bay Area Pluribal Alliance. That's her greenhouse there. So if you haven't gone, they have quarterly meetings there in Pacifica. And you can see the wonderful Dracula house as well when they host them. So without further ado.
Okay, I'm here to convert you all to be Dracaholics.
Compost.
No.
Yeah, can I get one person to tell me you can hear me? Evan, can you hear me?
Can anybody out in TV land hear us?
You have a thumbs up, so I'm gonna assume you can hear me.
Okay.
But first, a little history lesson.
Thank you.
Okay. Until 1978, all Draculas were listed as Masdevallias. Until Dr. Carl Lohr took the 50 best Masdevallias and renamed them Dracula. I did mention I was biased, right?
Just a little bit.
Are we supposed to be seeing the slides on Zoom?
Oh, she's not sharing the screen.
Got a cartoon, but we don't have her slide presentation.
Says you're sharing. Do you see the cartoon?
Yes.
That's it. That's the slide.
Okay.
That's my first slide. Power corrupts. PowerPoint corrupts absolutely.
Try again.
We don't have to wait 5 minutes between slides.
Okay, caption is now in English. The part that's blacked out at the bottom is supposed to say, this is Joe Parker's version. The,
Don't touch it.
okay. This is Dracula chimera, which is actually the type species for the genus. However, honestly, when most people think of Draculas, they don't think of chimera. They primarily think of this guy.
Yeah.
This is Dracula ubangana. The clonal name is Juan. And it is somewhat intimidating. Now, this is another clone of Juan, which is actually quite a bit darker. Now, one thing you're going to learn in Draculas is that there's a lot of variance among the various species and among the genus as a whole. And that's part of the reason why I only grow Draculas. There's enough variety in the genus to keep me happy and busy. Although some of these just can't carry off the brutal theme of Dracula. This is Dracula iricolor, which actually is has also a reputation for being the only Dracula named after a typo. Now, I'm not sure what tricolor was supposed to represent in terms of the coloration, but this was supposed to be Dracula tricolor. But it didn't turn out that way. Let's start looking at what I call the big and the beautiful. Now, these Draculas have a characteristic that they are not only large, but also that they tend to bloom one at a time. In other words, their flowering is sequential. They will put out several flowers on the same inflorescence, but they will only put them out one at a time. This is a Vampira, tied across with Hawk Hill. I actually prefer this form of Vampira because I like the ones where the striping is very distinct. But that's my personal bias. This is a different one. Again, showing some variation in the genus, also in the species. This is a vampire called Walter. And you can obviously know who that is named after. This is actually what wisely-eyed San Francisco looks like.
Yeah. Like the lip.
The difference is that, let's step back a bit and make it overexposed. Because it actually is that dark. And it's possibly one of the reasons that it is part of another Dracula raven. The Dracula raven, in this case, the clonal name is Edgar, is a pure black orchid. This is a oddity in the business, but John Weathers figured out how to do this, and he made it happen. This is a different chimera. Notice that the hairs on this one are quite a bit longer than the hairs on the one that I showed at the very beginning. This is a different form and quite unusual. This is Dracula leforii. It is also a characteristic that it actually tends to bloom in pairs rather than singly. And likewise, Woolwardii. This is a Dracula that is named after Woolward way back when, and is actually a Dracula that is quite attractive because it's large. Bellerophon is an interesting one. And I say interesting because honestly, I have rarely seen a good picture of Bellerophon. And the reason is that it has a slightly yellow blush to it. And it rarely shows up in a real picture. So this is a hard slide to interact with just because you're not seeing the real Bellerophon at this point. This is a more dramatic one. This is Dracula robledorum. And it has obviously a very interesting pattern on the, not only the lip, but also on the body of the flower itself. This is Terbartia, which is a more red color than the maroon colors that we usually see in Dracula. And this is Dracula Bella. Interesting story about Bella is that this was the first Dracula I actually bought. And I bought it when I was down in Santa Barbara, and somebody had it in their booth, and it was in bloom. Now, those of you who are used to Draculas may find that to be an oddity, because without a Wardian case, it is rare to actually see a Dracula in bloom. It needs to have some substance to it. Well, this one has more substance than a normal Dracula would have. And there's actually one of these actually on the opportunity table. And it is a good starter for it. Okay. I'm going to disagree with almost everything on this list. With the exception, well, first of all, Draculas are not cold-growing orchids. They do not need the cold. And I can show you that very, I'll pause a minute. The daytime temperature range is, I consider, reasonable. The nighttime temperature, I consider as reasonable. Low light, Draculas do not need a large amount of light. They can grow in very normally rugged conditions in terms of light. Strong air movement, I do not agree with. They do not need strong air movement. I have a suspicion that this property of Draculas, first of all, being hard to grow, and Draculas being requiring strong air movement, may have been because the original people who grew Draculas were on the East Coast. And on the East Coast, you can quickly kill a lot of Draculas because temperatures will go through the roof at a drop of a hat. And that is reasonably fatal. High humidity, yes, I agree. You need to have a humid space in order to grow Draculas well. But you got that. That's not a problem. Don't panic. You may recognize this Canadian intrepid orchid hunter, not only because he's carrying a very interesting Dracula with extremely long tails. The tails go all the way down to this bar here and up there. But also notice what he's wearing. He's wearing a short sleeve shirt. And he's out hunting for Draculas. Draculas don't need the high temperatures or low temperatures that you think they need. They can
Wet because he's got boots on.
Well, yeah, he's been out tromping around. Andy Phillips.
Who was that?
Yeah. Andy Phillips, who lives down in San Diego, for a year measured the temperatures high in his greenhouse where his Draculas hung. His maximum high, well, his average maximum was the high 90s. And he actually hit 114 at one point. His comment was that the vampires suffered a little, but the chimeras didn't seem to notice. This might lead you to a selection from the opportunity. This is, and I've heard this from other sources. There are people in the botanical gardens in New York City who have told me the same thing, that these are not plants that need the cold temperatures as much as you might believe. Let's look at the small fry. Now, there's two blooming characteristics for Draculas. As I said, there's the sequential blooming of the large guys, and then there's a separate flush of flowers that result in the small guys. So let's look at some of the small fry. Benedictii. This is an interesting, in part because the color is white on the outside and dark inside, very dark inside. There's another copy of Benedictii. And you notice that this one is extremely floriferous. It is blooming the hell out of it. So when it's grown well, these flowers can result in very interesting displays. There's Deltoida, which is a yellow greenish type of orchid that is also has a characteristic that it blooms in inflorescences that are below the plant. And in fact, sufficiently below the plant that it's attractive. So you can notice that it's blooming below the plant. Yeah.
Are these spikes coming over the edge and going down, or are they coming at the bottom of the pot like a Sanophia?
No, they're actually starting at the top and going down. This is Dracula lotax, which is actually one of the warmer growing of the Draculas. This one likes it a little bit warmer. This is Dracula quartervi. This one is an interesting plant, in part because of the fact that it has this dark colored rim around the entire outside of the flower. I like this one, but then I like long tails. So the fact that this thing has got Dracula papillosa stig has extremely long tails, I find to be an attractive feature for most of the Dracula. This is Braineri, which actually, again, has a characteristic of a light colored band around the outside. Primarily caused by the fact that the hairs are growing out in that direction. This is Diabla andina. This is a more common type of the smaller Draculas. And somebody was looking at the precipice at the back. Yes, there's a precipice on the opportunity table, and this is the same clone. This is a precipice snow cloud. Bird's eye is an interesting Dracula. It's between this one and one called Exasperata as to which one looks more like a handlebar mustache. This is Dracula mopsus. I told a number of you already about the mopsus because I claim that nobody can kill this plant. Now, you think so? It actually is a fairly attractive flower in terms of the density with which it also puts out flowers. It puts out a flush of flowers at one time. Now, the other side of this is that mopsus is known almost down to sea level in Costa Rica. And as a result, it is not one of the high growing orchids that are in the high Andes, for instance. And therefore, it doesn't need it wants warmer temperatures, and it might able to. Now, admittedly, I have it growing in my greenhouse next to my vampires. So it doesn't need that temperature, but it doesn't hurt it to have that temperature. Okay. What is the conventional wisdom for the ideal kid? Daily watering, repot at least yearly, but only in the spring and fall. New Zealand sphagnum moss. Use baskets, because obviously the flowers have to get out somewhere. And fertilize monthly. Well, I disagree with almost all of these. I only get out to my greenhouse twice a week. So it makes it a little hard for me to daily water. I just can't get out there that long. Repotting at least yearly and only in the spring and fall. That I think again comes from the fact that the earlier adopters of these plants were on the East Coast. And they need to set up so that they have good growth in their plants before the spring and fall. And that is really why they recommend these characteristics. New Zealand sphagnum moss, I use only New Zealand sphagnum moss. That I find that's not only the best solution, but it's one that actually serves me well in terms of being something I'm used to. And I don't try to change a lot when I do that. Baskets, yes, you've got to be able to get out to the bottom of that. Now, the fertilized monthly, I would slightly disagree with. I have a dosatron, and so as a result, I continuously feed my Draculas. But they don't really need a lot of fertilizer. So don't worry if you can't get around to fertilizing as often as you think you should. And of course, don't panic.
Do you fertilize all year round?
Yes. They're not all maroon and white. There's Dracula lemii, which is cut, but it has very long inflorescences. And there's even a spotted Vespertio. And of course, there's the yellow versions. I don't have any of these on the table. But they actually are quite distinctive. And there's even a Gorgona, which is yellow. Again, it has an FCC, which is just that was awarded down in Columbia. Okay. What are the problems that you have with Draculas? Most likely problems are brown tips, lost leaves, dead roots. Certainly when repotting, you may run into a lot of dead roots. Mites, aphids, and bean yellow mosaic virus. That is the one that you do want to worry about. You have your plants outside. You're exposing them to aphids and to the potential for bean yellow mosaic virus. Well, the aphids carry the virus. So they're the transport media or mechanism for a virus. I do trim the leaves on my plant. But if I do it, I immediately sulfur the edges of the cut. And I do that in part because the sulfur acts as a drying agent. And if you remember your Civil War history, which is maybe a bit of a stretch, you may remember that in fact, sulfur was used during the Civil War because of its antiseptic properties. And so I think I'm getting two things at one when I go to the trouble of sulfur in the edges when I cut them.
Can you use copper or is it toxic, phytotoxic?
I would not use copper, no. I would stick to sulfur.
Sulfur powder that you're putting on the brush?
Yeah, no, it's a powder, but I typically just, since I'm repotting the pot, what I will do is I will take my finger and put it into the media and then use that to pick up the sulfur and put it onto the, yeah. So I put it on the thing. Now, lost leaves, well, obviously, if you lose them all, dead roots, if you are repotting, it is not uncommon for you to have, in fact, it may even have self-divided in terms of the dead roots. So, but the key thing is mites. Mites are not really a problem with Draculas because the humidity is so hot that they do not attract mites. Mites are deathly. Aphids, as I said, are the conveyor for the bean-yellow mosaic mites. I would suggest that if you have a plant which looks like this, then toss it. Most Draculas these days are not uncommon. You can find them at any show. And so there is no reason for you to suffer the possibility of having a plant infect the rest of your crop. And I have seen this in places that I would not expect to see this. And so this is something that you do need to watch out. So panic.
Is there a test for that, or do you go by decision?
Yeah, there is a test. There is a test that you can buy to check. To see.
Avia has it?
Hmm?
Avia has the test?
I don't know. A patient won't forget. This is the one Dracula that you should not take a picture head on. Because it looks much better on the side. This is Dracula chestertonia. It is a Dracula that has an upward facing lip, and it is quite large relative to the size of the plant. This is Dracula cutis plutonus, which has the opposite orientation. This lip is actually facing down. May not be able to see that. This is the other one that I mentioned. This is exasperata. It actually, when properly grown, it does look like a handlebar mustache. The lateral sepals will be directly out and rigid, and the dorsal will be straight up. Okay, what is important? Good water. That is the most important thing to have if you're trying to grow Draculas. And I would suggest that it's fortunate that we live in the Bay Area where good water is common. We have Hetch Hetchy water, it's very good, and it is a good source of water. Cool nights. There is the loose media is perhaps my own bias. I know that the media is going to decay over time. And as such, I wanted to start off as good as possible so that I get the most benefit out of the meeting. No aphids. You should learn that by now. And high humidity. You need to have a high humidity environment. Don't panic. Thank you.
Is these are mosaic virus, the only virus that the Draculas and Marsupials get?
Yes,
You don't have to test for anything else?
no.
Or something caught without having to test.
Nice. Is it more important to have sort of that more temperature range in the 15 by 16? Or is it okay to have maybe a larger temperature differential?
I would suggest that it's reasonable to have down to about 45 degrees. If you get much below 45, you'll start having.
What about if your nighttime is like 6?
That would be fine. That is not a problem.
How do they handle warm nights? Where I am, we can have nights.
90s can be a problem. Where do you live?
And you,
Oh, Annie. Yeah, may have to cut you out. Yeah, because it really, that gets to be too.
doesn't happen last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes all the leaves fall off.
Are there a lot of hybrids out there?
Excuse me?
Are there a lot of hybrids out there?
Yes, there are an awful lot of hybrids. John Leathers has created any number of good hybrids, including Raven. One that I should read. There are an awful lot of hybrids.
If you use a swamp cooler in school, would that be too dry to them? Or would you think that he's gonna be high and use a swamp cooler?
I would, yes, I would answer yes. Yeah, you can do that. They might go in bathrooms. That would be a good solution to avoid viral problems. Yes, that would not be a big problem. Yeah.
Do they all grow best in baskets that are with large enough holes so they?
Yes. The inflorescence from a Dracula does come out, typically would come out through the bottom of the basket. And I've only seen one case where I had a friend who actually tried to use baskets that were designed for aquaculture with just little bitty slits. And the end result is that it's the first time I've ever seen the Dracula vampire as an upright. Yeah, it grew up. But the trick is though, that the Draculas will tend to find a way to bloom. They want to bloom. They have to turn their way around and go up, and that's what they'll do.
So I had a Dracula, I think it was a vampire. It showing a bud, then it blasted. So what was the cause of that?
Probably may have been too high of a temperature.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't think it was that hot last year.
No, I couldn't say for sure.
I'll just have to look at once every month.
Yeah.
Is there a particular time of year that they're more likely?
Well, actually, I've had Draculas, especially some of the yellows, that have been in bloom for more than a year, continuously. And that is, so The answer is no. There's not any time, well, I correct myself. There are certain times of the year where, especially the smaller guys, are likely to put on the big. I couldn't tell you.
Good water, or you talking about like tap water or still?
Well, actually, if you can collect rainwater, that's probably the best. Remember, these Draculas are coming from the high Andes, most of them. And there, they live in a cloud. They live in a cloud forest. And as a result, they are not used to contaminated water. They are used to having pure water. And that is the best conditions you can give them.
Brown spots, you were saying, I just wanted to clarify, so I have one that does that, and I just I've been cutting the tips off, the brown tips. So using a little sulfur where it's been cut, would be the answer for that?
Yeah, that would probably, I would suggest that as being a good solution.
What prevented from getting more brown?
Yes.
All of my Draculas have brown tips.
They just get, they get annoyed and they get. I typically fertilize at a very low dosatron level, like 400 to 1, or 1 to 400. And that is just because of the particular dosatrons that I have. And it works out well. Very low nitrogen.
Susan, do you have yours in loose sphagnum moss in baskets you water them about twice a week? You know, how much is that moss drying out?
Well, in some cases, it will dry out. But it perks up when I rewater the plants.
You ever found the need to use those on?
No. What was the question? Have I had a need to use the ultrasonic foggers? And I'll correct that. The only case that we've used the ultrasonic foggers is inside the boarding case. Yeah. Where we use them all. Yeah.
Volcano.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like when you have the orchid shows and you have the boarding case.
You use a boarding case otherwise, or
No.
is it just for show?
No, it's just for show.
I'll type up the, so, I mean, I grow Draculas and bloom them under my deck. And before I got the ultrasonic fogger, the flowers would last. So I could, like, I brought in two that more, have a heavier substance, they do fine. But the floppy, like Vampiras, they just wilt. So I could get the green plant to grow without the supplemental fog, but if I had flowers, it just didn't seem to really last as long. And that was the difference. Like I could do that even on Mount Davidson in the city, and so I'm an advocate for it. But I know like a few other folks that have them, but most people don't seem to use it.
Kind of depends on what humidity you've got to start with. He's in Pacific.
Right, but I'm in Mount Davidson, so
It's just fog in right now.
But, you know, people tell me that. They tell me that, of course I can grow Draculas. You know, Pacific is full of fog. But I don't let the fog into my greenhouse.
choice. The other thing about Andes, so I went to Andes and I bought some Draculas from him and I saw them in blue. But his Dracula, his cool growing greenhouse is completely encased in algae and Oh, yeah. So so when it might get to it and it's tall. So it's hot at the top inside. It is sweaty, but it's so shady, you can't see direct sunlight inside his cool room. So, yeah, and there's late, he's got, if you've ever seen him at the shows with all those rats, I mean, he grows like that. So it's sort of shaded and there's microclimates within the.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we need to take a 5-minute break and then we'll start show and tell.
Sure. Go back, break, buy tickets.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Once again, this weekend,
Oh, look, he's over there.
Dracula, see another side. Also,
He doesn't do any show. The only show he does
but you might come back with 4 or 5 plants.
I was gonna bring something. I got some bird
This one has
Just keep it going.
Out of the 2,000
You know, I have my background.
Yeah, well, I didn't mind them.
I mean, the ones in Pacific I do once in a while. They're underneath the mat. I mean, you know, I don't know.
I mean, you want to do yeah, especially. Yeah, I just have to sign into
Those five.
Oh, yeah.
He's my.
Oh. What's your
Okay, I'm gonna take care of this natural cause. They can start to show itself. We're gonna start with the stuff on one, and if we figure it out, we'll start the video and do the stuff in the.
You might want to speak to the.
No, I'm still sharing.
Right, but are you sharing this? Never.
Okay, so this is Judy Zeus, Mastabilia Ducumana. I've got unstable internet, so sorry for those at home. Large flowers, handlebar mustache. Joe.
There you go. It does look like that. It does.
This one is going crazy. Laelia Jungheri. Alan, what is this?
That's not it.
Probably switched it.
Yes, it's a dendrobium.
Linguiforme. Yeah?
Yeah. It was a test. So that's.
All right.
That's the way we go.
Next one, soccer.
Yeah.
That's Fitzgerald is the white, dark one that.
Okay, Jeff, Odontoglossum navadensis.
It's actually up here somewhere, right here.
That's a nice picture for the people at home.
You can turn off the lights, you can see the pictures better.
Yeah. Good.
That's also up here on the table.
Beautiful. You want to share anything about this growth?
It's the first time I bloomed it. It's a small one that is less sensitive to the humidity. And this I didn't bring in, so this has like 100 little flowers, and it's all just done by today. It's called Orchids Mastodon, it has little tusks. And if you look on online, some of them crisscross. They're longer and they cross. Mine doesn't.
Is it one flower from each or?
Yeah, one flower, the leaves are really big and the flowers are really tiny.
All right, Jonathan, got a Cattleysia violacea. You want to say anything about this guy? How do you grow it?
What's protein?
Yeah.
Rosewood, it's like a.
Where's Jonathan?
He's not here.
He's out there working on the graphics. Yeah,
So I didn't hear you. What is it? protein?
It's basically exactly what it sounds like. Instead of a sort of a greenhouse made out of like a solid structure, it's essentially a way to set up a greenhouse inside maybe your house.
So it's been clear plastic?
Actually, a lot of them are darker because they're usually darker. There's a lot of reasons.
Is the one that's insulated like a garbage?
Yeah. They're like green and black is like the main common ones.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, green is pretty
Yeah.
I think.
Mine is 2x4
Yeah.
by 6 feet.
Yeah. They're pretty cool to put inside and then you can like set up lights in them and air flow and everything.
Yeah.
But they're flexible.
All right, Restrepia, roseola.
I think there's probably extra.
That's in the grow tent too. Nice humidity for it. Phyllis, do you want to talk about your epigenia?
No, there's no deal.
You grow it outside? Inside. Dendrobium hancockii? Anything to say about this thing?
Yeah, everybody should have a dendrobium hancockii. It blooms like crazy. It's a cool grower.
And it smells so good.
So next time Kay's bringing cuttings for us.
Yeah. The Renethra vietnamensis is from the cool part of Vietnam. It is also a cool grower. And Thunia alba came from India, and it is grown in intermediate greenhouse. Silogeny Moriana Brookhurst is one that an awful lot of, at least it used to be, a lot of San Francisco growers have that. Mine is naturalized on my back landing. It's, I don't even know, I can't quite tell where it's growing. But it's blooming like crazy right now.
Is that all I have? Okay, that's it.
Should we turn the lights back on? Yep.
Now, for the participants that can't, I'm going to join this Zoom meeting on my phone so you can see. If you look at my screen here, you can see all of the orchids on the table.
You can stop and share.
Do you mean to be muted?